Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on an energetic, visually driven deep dive into the architecture of the Hadoop distributed file system, better known as HDFS. We're going to break down the complex mechanics of exactly how NameNodes and DataNodes work together.
Think about this for a second. Behind almost every major big data operation out there, there's a massive Hadoop cluster. We're talking thousands of servers and literal mountains of information. So it really begs a fundamental question. How on earth does Hadoop manage thousands of machines storing petabytes of data without losing track of a single file? I mean, it sounds like a logistical nightmare waiting to happen, right? Well, the secret is a highly structured, surprisingly elegant architecture that's built entirely around one central brain, coordinating a literal army of workers. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Master-slave architecture. 2. The NameNode Brain. 3. The DataNode Workers. 4. Client read-write workflow. 5. The secondary NameNode. And finally, 6. High availability and SPOF. Let's jump right into Section 1, Master-Slave Architecture. Notice the flow we're looking at here. In HDFS, you have one central authority, what we call the master node, sitting right at the top. Its entire job is just to control and coordinate tasks. Directly beneath it, receiving all those instructions, are multiple slave nodes. The master dictates exactly what needs to be done, and the slaves actually execute those tasks. It's a very clean, straightforward, hierarchical system. To put some specific Hadoop terminology to this layout, it really helps to think of it like a massive corporate ladder. The manager is our master node, which is known as the name node. It's the big boss sitting in the corner office coordinating the entire operation. The workers, on the other hand, are our slave nodes, known as the data nodes. The name node doesn't actually do any of the heavy lifting of storing the file data itself. No, that heavy lifting is entirely left to the workers, the data nodes, down on the factory floor. Moving right along to Section 2, the NameNode Brain. So the NameNode is exclusively a metadata manager. It regulates client access to files and manages the whole file system namespace. And to pull this off, it relies on two incredibly important files. The first is the fsimage. This is a crucial file containing the complete snapshot of the file-to-block mapping and the directory hierarchy at a specific point in time. Seriously, if you're prepping for an interview right now, absolutely lock this definition in. The fsimage basically represents the complete, absolute state of your entire file system in one go. But as you know, a file system is constantly changing, right? That's where the second file comes in, the edit logs. This file is actively recording all the live, continuous changes and updates made to the system ever since that last fsimage snapshot was taken. Now, what's really cool is how these two interact. Whenever the name node starts up, it takes the existing fsimage and the current edit logs from the disk, literally merges them into a brand new fsimage file, and loads that fresh, up-to-date state right into memory. After that, a fresh set of edit logs is initiated. It's just an ingenious way to make sure the system's brain is always fully updated. All right, on to Section 3, the DataNode Workers. So we've got a handle on the brain. Now let's shift our focus to the brawn of the operation. Take a look at the bottom half of the diagram here. See those individual boxes labeled DataNode? Those are standard commodity machines. And notice how the actual blocks of data are mapped directly onto them. This is where the physical file data actually lives. The name node up at the top, it only maintains the information on where these blocks are stored, but the data itself sits squarely on these individual data nodes. Data nodes really are the ultimate storage workers of Hadoop. Because they have to store all the data on HDFS, they're outfitted with massively large amounts of hard disk space. They also handle the actual creation, replication, and deletion of those data blocks, but importantly, only when they're explicitly instructed to do so by the name node. Finally, they're constantly sending regular block reports up to the name node just to say, hey, here's my current state. They really are the ultimate compliant workforce. Let's look at Section 4, Client Read-Write Workflow. Okay, let's look at how this actually plays out. When a client wants to read or write a file, they don't just blindly start dumping data. First, the client application reaches out and contacts the name node. Why? Because it needs the metadata. It needs directions. Second, the name node responds with the specific data node block locations. Third, armed with those locations, the client establishes a connection straight to those respective data nodes. And fourth, the client reads or writes the data directly to those workers. It's pretty simple. You talk to the manager to get your directions, but you deal directly with the workers for the actual goods. You can actually follow the arrows from the client over on the left. The client uses what are called remote procedure calls, or RPCs. If you aren't familiar, just think of an RPC as a way to allow systems to communicate remotely, basically just like calling a local function on your own computer. It sends an RPC to the master, the name node, to grab that metadata. Once it gets the locations back, the client sends separate RPCs directly down to the slaves, the data nodes, to interact with block 1, block 2, and so on. Oh, and notice that upward arrow from the slaves back to the master? That's that regular block report we talked about. It happens every hour, making absolutely sure the manager always knows exactly what its workers are holding on to.
Next up, Section 5, the secondary name node.
Remember a minute ago how we discussed the name node, combining the fsimage and the edit logs on startup? Well, edit logs can grow to be absolutely massive, and combining them with the fsimage actually takes a lot of time and processing power. Enter the secondary name node. Notice how it sits off to the side here and acts as a sort of checkpoint helper. At regular intervals, it queries the main name node for those edit logs. It steps in to do the heavy computational work of applying those logs to the fsimage itself, generating an updated fsimage. Then it copies that fresh, updated file right back to the main name node. So it's essentially just a helper node that drastically cuts down on the time the main node has to spend crunching log files.
Now, please heed this absolutely critical warning. The secondary name node cannot replace the name node. This is a massive interview prep call-out. So many people see the word secondary and just automatically assume it means backup. It doesn't. It is strictly a checkpoint node, a helper there to speed up operations. If your main name node crashes, that secondary name node cannot step up and run the cluster. It just doesn't work like that. Which brings us to our final section, 6, high availability and SPOF.
So what actually happens if the manager entirely crashes? Well, in the original architecture, which we call Hadoop version 1, the system actually had a single point of failure, or SPOF. Because the secondary name node couldn't take over, if the main name node failed, the entire HDFS system went down with it. Completely catastrophic. But thankfully, Hadoop version 2 solved this by introducing high availability. They added a true dedicated backup, the standby name node. This standby node stays in constant real-time synchronization with the main name node. If the main node ever goes down, the standby instantly takes over all of its duties. In fact, fun fact, if you're running a standby name node, you don't even need a secondary name node anymore.
By fully separating the metadata from the raw data, utilizing a massive army of commodity data nodes, and securing the master with a standby high availability system, Hadoop creates an incredibly robust architecture. Which really just leaves us with one final thought to ponder. Now that you truly understand the resilient, scalable architecture behind all of this, with high availability fully secured by that standby name node, just how much data could your cluster actually handle? I mean, the sky is truly the limit. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.